So I'd like to start by having you talk a little about this new take on history and how you guys are attracting a new audience to it potentially.
I would say that our show is more like historical fiction. We definitely have an element of the fantastical. We're bringing in some really modern elements, which I think will appeal to our sort of younger audience, between the ages of, say, like 15 to like 30. It's kind of a different take on the historical genre. It's kind of fresh and different and new, and we can bring in some modern styling, like vintage pieces and couture, which I'm really excited about. I'm very into the fashion element. We're using modern music as well, which again I think will appeal to our audience. And yeah, it's nothing like anything the CW has ever done before, and I don't think anybody's done this sort of modern take on a historical genre. So hopefully it plays well.
What was it like for you stepping into this character?
It was difficult. It's a lot of responsibility. I take it with a very large grain of salt because it is more along the lines of historical fiction than a documentary drama. I feel responsibility because I'm Scottish, because she was a real person. I did a lot of research on her as a woman. I did a lot of research on her life and what she went through historically. And she does have a fascinating story, and she's a very interesting, intelligent, active, and somewhat rash and impulsive woman. I really like her. So I've put in my work, but at the same time, I need to put a little bit of myself in, otherwise it won't feel real.
When it comes to this story, can you talk about how you guys are blending fiction with real history?
We're using some of the more important historical plot points, like, for example, the marriage to Francis. Francis's death will come up as the seasons progress. Knock on wood, we get more seasons. The same with the death of King Henry and with their ascension to the throne, their lack of children. But then, on the other hand, we're also taking a little bit of creative license in terms of potential suitors for Mary, in terms of her handmaids and their romances. To begin with, they're not all called Mary. They all have different names. So yeah, we're just, to add a little bit of drama, we're taking some creative liberties in terms of events that happen between the major historical milestones that we're going to cover during the show.
What do you think it is? I mean, when you look at shows like the Tudors or the White Queen, about the drama that happened back then that still mesmerizes people in the modern day?
I think the interesting thing, I think the reason that historical dramas are so compelling is they're so much more real. The human interaction is so much more immediate. Whereas today we have text and phone calls and emails and Facebook and Twitter. Human interaction is somewhat stilted. It's distant. You don't have that person-on-person kind of interplay anymore. It's so much easier to ask someone out via text. It's like the stakes are much higher back in those days as well, because lack of contraception, because of the patriarchy, because of gender roles in those times. So just the stakes are a lot higher, and life was much shorter, and you lived life faster and harder, and everything meant more back then. It's kind of like life, but heightened. And I think that historical dramas are quite cathartic for me. They go through such highs and lows, such trials and tribulations, that I really feel for them. Like an unhappy marriage with a man who ultimately ignores you or abuses you, and meeting someone that you fall passionately in love with, and it's like a forbidden love because you're married, and having to sacrifice yourself for your family. Yeah, it's just more dramatic than real life, and I think it's really cathartic for most audiences, and I think that's why it's such a good genre to sell.